The thing that's happened in the last 5 years is probably bigger than the Industrial Revolution. It's a cultural revolution. The shift of control is the thing that resonates with me the most. The institutions are all very afraid. Universities should be afraid. Churches should be afraid. Government should be afraid because they're losing control. Because the people actually have a platform now to communicate on uncensored. They can share ideas and share content and files and thoughts and persuasion and influence. They can shift opinions overnight, and anybody has the ability to have the influence of what we would call great people not so long ago, just because they have something to say. That's what's really the big shift. 5 years ago, I was doing banner ads, microsites, and emails for General Motors, and now I don't touch those things because they're just not effective. Now I'm trying to earn influence in a conversation space, and I've shifted my, hopefully, and tried more and more, to shift our agency away from the idea of persuasion and into the idea of influence. Get our clients to stop thinking about how we can change people's minds and actually try to understand what people are thinking. And that's the biggest shift. And when we actually start, the power of all these platforms that are available to us now, we can garner such great, tremendous human insights. Notice I didn't say consumer insights. That's another shift that's happened on Madison Avenue. Is that we got to stop thinking like Vikings and about conquesting and target audiences and conversions, and please don't consider my family for your conquest, right? Instead, let's start thinking about how can we align to behaviors that already exist and bring us into it to cause influence towards us. And that's a pretty massive shift for advertisers. So we're following, we're surfing the wake of this boat. We're not the boat.
Does the winning movie kind of come to the top, way faster than it used to a few years ago, and then you get behind it and you ride it and you invest behind it? Or are there still a set of tactics where you can shape views and drive demand and actually play that traditional marketing communications role?
Last summer we released the movie Bruno, which Sacha Baron Cohen is just a genius and total respect for him. Borat was phenomenal, and we were kind of riding the wave in terms of a lot of what we were doing both online and a lot of kind of the conversation was driven by pieces that we would leak online because it was restricted content and you couldn't put it in other places. And it kind of became an event in terms of that opening night. We had midnight showings for when the weekend it opened, and that Friday night we could see huge numbers, and then it dropped. And it was interesting because the way our modeling works is by midday on a Friday, we can predict what the weekend's box office is going to be based on just historical information. And we were predicting it was going to be a strong weekend. That wasn't the case. And a lot of people the pundits started saying, oh, it's a Twitter effect. It wasn't the Twitter effect, it was a word of mouth effect. That people went to the movie expecting one kind of experience, and that wasn't what they got. And they went home and they posted on their Facebook. They texted out. They did tweet about it and said, this isn't the movie that I thought I was getting. And we saw our numbers actually drop the next night. And it didn't have a hold in the movies as we expected. Conversely, something like Despicable Me opened very solidly for us, and it played much longer than we had it in plan for, because it did have a strong word of mouth, and that was where the sharing, and it is so critical that the product has got to be there ultimately.
I mean, at Google, I'd say we've seen similar things. We launched a few products this year, some of which were very successful. Android has been around for 2 years, been done very well. Chrome's actually doing very well. Product Buzz isn't really around anymore. Wave sort of came and went, and they sort of came and went because they didn't work. Right, they weren't giving the consumers what they wanted, and we could see very early on in the numbers, people would try it, it would go up, and then it would spike right back down. And once you get off that curve, it's really challenging to get back on it. So it's better to sort of feed the winners and starve the losers, and sort of shut it down and figure out another way to come back after it.
I don't think budgets are getting any smaller. I don't think that that's appropriate. I think they should be, but they are shifting. They're shifting into different spots. The digital spend, as far not relating to media, but relating to production, is actually going through the roof. So the strategists and planners, the account people and project managers and creative ilk that come from the digital world are being paid very well and being paid almost as much as their traditional brothers and sisters. But those guys, they're seeing their jobs disappear. They're seeing massive shrinkage in the mass communications arena for people that can't think digital. And in my world, social is digital. So that's the shift. And media dollars, I'm going to be frank, I don't care about media dollars. I never did care about media dollars. I'm sorry. What I care about is my clients' dollars and how we best spend it. And I actually think in the social space, it's a complete flip. It's the 80-20 rule, that's the general rule, is a complete flip. 80% of your money should be going towards production, 20% towards media and supporting that content to move around the web. There is no one platform. It's all platforms. There is no Facebook strategies. There's social ideas. And if your idea is inherently social, it will appear on Facebook. It will also appear everywhere. It'll appear on Twitter. It'll appear everywhere. Smell Like a Man was a social idea. And that appeared everywhere. It wasn't placed everywhere. And that's pretty fundamental.
But I'm going to jump in because it's like that's the nirvana to say, oh yeah, go out with that goal of it's going to appear everywhere. For every one of those Old Spice campaigns, there's 10 campaigns that don't appear everywhere.
I've done 10 of those too.
And I tell this anecdote of last year we had the movie It's Complicated, which with Meryl Streep and Alec Baldwin and Steve Martin. And I don't know if anybody's on Funny or Die, but they always have these kind of really fun little vignettes. And there was a great one that they did with The Proposal and Betty White and Sandra Bullock, and it got a lot of play. And so we had approached Steve and Nancy Meyer, who was the director, about should we do a Funny or Die video? Steve and Alec could be really, they have a great chemistry and they've done a lot together. And we went to Steve and we said, hey, what would you think about doing a viral video? We put it up on Funny or Die. And he said, you don't make a viral video, you make a video, and it might go viral. And that was a really kind of the right way to think about it, is that there's no guarantees in terms of what you're going to do. And that's one of our big challenges, I think, is that there's a lot of really creative ideas out there, but the one that's going to take off, it's like catching lightning in a bottle to some extent. Tron, which is coming out in a month, that Disney's releasing, I think they've had 14 trailers out there, which most studios will have 3 or 4 trailers at most. They've had a 2-year campaign that started at Comic-Con. They've had a number of other big event campaigns online and offline, and they have fed the fire, I think, very successfully. One of the things that we say, though, is it growing the audience, or is it still just staying within a core group of fans? And that's one of our challenges, is like, how do we modulate, how do we monitor, and what do we release, and to make sure that we're actually adding and growing the conversation as opposed to potentially diluting it.
I think that we all too often also don't support our product with media. So we're putting out content out there. To me, social media is content. It's not platform. You've probably gathered that by now. It's about putting out great ideas and getting them to move around. But if you're not actually sparking that somehow with some media dollars, we constant failures on that. Every time we don't support it with at least a little bit, it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be like $20,000 in media. It could be enough on Google AdWords to launch this thing and actually get it going, or a nice seeding strategy on YouTube, or a very solid Facebook like credit card buy just to get the link going so that people know that the thing's there. Whenever we don't do that, it fails, and there's just a lot of examples of that.